All right. So here is the deck list. You start with this does have a lot of bricks, but that's not necessarily a problem because of course Grethus at 2 is not a garnet. If you draw 2, it can be. Uh, Usually, if you draw 2, draw both, it is a brick, but drawing 1 is perfectly fine because you just discard it off of the coelacanth and then summon the other one, and then shuffle both back for the end of the combo with the leaf fish, so it works perfectly, even if you draw 1 Grethus. Fishborg, you can still full combo, you just need a way to discard it, maybe with White Stingray, um, or something of that sort, or 1-for-1. To send it to the grave before you do your first coelacanth summon, so that when you special summon it, so you can special summon itself instead of special summoning it off the coelacanth effect. You just need to do it before you use the coelacanth effect. The only thing that can usually fuck that up is with if you have Dugara's in grave after having reborn the coelacanth. But usually the way to do that is just summon the Fishborg before you like reborn the coelacanth and before you pop the Dugara's with the Barone. And of course, this will be all make a lot more sense watching the combo. Of course, you have 2 paces, not 3, because you're not trying to get it into hand to summon coelacanth. You're primarily using Dugara's to summon coelacanth, meaning you don't need to play places at 3. That's not your like win con you're going for. It's just you just have 2 so that if one gets stuck in the banish zone, you have another one. Same with Schiff. Usually people don't play 3 Schiff. It would make sense maybe to play 3 Schiff, but I've never had problems. You generally don't want to draw it because obviously paces it's okay to draw because you can special summon. It's a good normal summon. Paces, or I mean, Schiff is definitely not. You just want it to be engraved, so you want to mill it with Leaf Fish or banish it from deck with the Arion Post or whatever else. Or just have it engraved for its attack boost, its self-attack boost effect. But essentially, the main point of this deck is to special summon. Is to use your is usually use to use your normal summon to get Leaf Fish out, and then mill the coelacanth, and then get a rank 4 extender out. Silent Angler, White Stingray, a heap. A heap's actually, in my opinion, the best one because you can get it off of the field spell, which I do play. I think it is worth it. It has helped me out quite a bit. Don't play it. I don't play it more than 1. It doesn't really. It takes way too much space playing it more than 1, but it's very helpful. It's an extra copy of heap. Essentially, just another copy of a rank 4 extender for the purposes of this deck. And it's just obviously good in Ghoti. It's the Ghoti field spell. So it's been helpful for sure. The essentially I think you want to play the same amount of rank 4 extenders as essentially ways to get into Leaf Fish. And in this deck list at the moment, I think there's 9 ways to get into Leaf Fish and 9 ways to get into a rank 4 extender with yeah. Yes, I counted right. Because you have, and the corridor also fulfills that because the corridor it still works. You just need to have the Butuniful fulfills the shuffle back for the corridor. And it's also good to play corridor just to shuffle back like a paces or a shift that's been stuck in the banish zone. So especially if you run out of them, that usually doesn't happen, but it's a backup plan for that. I used to play Colossus in this deck. But after I added the Calamity stuff, I ran out of space, and I've only ever won 1 game with, I think, with through Colossus, which was essentially against a horrible Thunder Dragon player. So I wouldn't recommend actually playing Colossus unless you like really don't like Croca Dragon. I like him. I use him quite a bit. Well, at least relatively a lot. Or if you want to drop like one of the boss monsters, but I wouldn't recommend that at all if you plan on using my combo. Um, I can understand if you don't want to do the Calamity Lock because the end board without Calamity Lock is already so amazing that it might be better just to have Colossus as a backup plan, or like Kragan or something in the extra deck here, instead of the Scarlight and King Calamity, which are essentially the only 2 cards in the extra deck for the Calamity Lock, instead of like the 4 or 5 that we needed with Excel Synchro Stardust, which is a massive boost that Synchro Zone gives us. The only thing that Synchro Zone does the only problem with Synchro Zone is that it's not searchable. So, but it doesn't really matter because if you get the main combo, you don't need to get Calamity Lock to win like every time, but you can if you had hard drawn Synchro Zone. And Synchro Zone is just good almost regardless of what hand you have in this deck. It's literally just like, I don't know how I've never seen this card before. It's purpose built for Ghoti. It's just attack Floodgate for synchros, and then Reborn's a synchro, and then synchros on your opponent's turn. It's just like as can in a bottle. It's absurd. Among other things. But point is, next is I play 1-Zep. This is only used for you can cycle it in the combo and get it like out of the deck, but usually if you're not doing the Calamity Lock, you're just going to want to in the Calamity Lock you actually use it to synchro with Snowpios into Scarlight sometimes. Of course you can always use one of the other 2 tuners, but usually at that point you would have already banished both of them through the Coelacanth combo. So Zep essentially um, he's just an extra tuner you can use to keep engrave. That you can use and get some value out of cycling him for getting out the last synchro before you pass with set synchro zone. But yeah, I only usually use 1-Zep just because it's not a really big deal. You never usually run into a problem where you're like, oh wait, I really wish I had a Zep in deck because I need to banish with the Ariane post, because that's usually later in the game and you have other options to do that kind of thing. Like a Snowpios in hand, ideally, to be able to just cycle the Zep on with this card instead to summon it and synchro again. And then next would be the staples. I run pretty low amount of staples right now, mostly because I'm broken Master Duel, but I'm still working on it. I just crafted Cross out like 10 minutes ago, so that is a new addition. I'm still testing that, of course. Again, keep in mind this is all still testing. So the combo is still very consistent, and the best part is that even if you don't get the combo, you're essentially the only other cards you would be able to draw instead of your main combo are essentially Ghoti starters. So if you don't get the combo, you're going to be able to start your Ghoti shit and cycle your tuners and do all that that a normal Ghoti deck would do anyways. And of course, you can always, once you summon the Leaf Fish, if you know that they have an imperm or something, you can always pivot to just doing Ghoti shit instead of the combo to like play around certain stuff like Droll or something. Obviously, Droll is not popular in Master Duel, but that's an option if you want to play this in a different format. You can play around a bunch of other stuff too, like imperm. Like usually they wait for your Dugares to come out before they imperm. So if you just wait for if you just like send Shift or something with Leafish instead of Coelacanth, then you can just like banish Shift and then pass, and then they can't like they're not they would essentially they would have waited too long to use their imperm, and so that's pretty good. It's very versatile in that sense. I play 1 shifter. I want to try 2 at some point. Of course, I'm broken Master Duel. That's why I haven't tried it yet. But same thing with Called By. I want to try with 2 of those as well. But I haven't gotten to a point where the combo is inconsistent yet, based on other cards I shove in. But that is something I want to try. D-Shifter is basically a good backup if you essentially Butuniful into like Leaf Fish, but then they like Ash or something, or Maxi even. You can just rip D-Shifter because there's still nothing in your grave because it's banishes for cost, not like sends to grave for cost. So there's your graveyard will still be empty. until after the leaf fish resolves. So you could even chain the shifter off the leaf fish instead of the ash or whatever they negated the Beautiful with if you wanted to wait for whatever reason. That might be able to play around some kind of thing. But shifter's that little backup there, and it's just a good card in the deck because obviously it's a deck that wants its stuff banished and it can have its graveyard empty. It's a pretty decent card to shove in there. It's 3 Snopios. This is just like you need. I think you absolutely need 3. I can't understand playing Ghoti without 3 of these. Like you always need one. It's so amazing. Cycling your tuners. It's the lifeblood of the deck in the grind game. So just play 3. And then of course the 1 Coelacanth. You don't need any more. Trust me. You're not ever going to summon it with Paces anyways. And even if you do hard draw it, there are a bunch of ways to get to Paces, such as Field Spell, Piri Reis, the Beautiful's themselves. If you hard draw the Paces, it's so easy to get into Paces when you hard draw Coelacanth. So it's not hard to like pivot into just summoning Coelacanth normally without Dugaras. I wouldn't worry about that. Now 1 for 1. This is important to remember. 1 for 1 acts technically as both a Way into Leaf Fish and a Rank 4 extender because it summons Beautiful, which summons any level 1 or special summons 1 level 4 or lower fish. So you can go for like let's say if you already had if you had like Leaf Fish, another water monster discard like Stingray or something, or no, like a tuner. Tuner would be a better example. Like you normal Leaf Fish, you have another tuner in hand, and then you just have 1 for 1. And then usually you'd be like, okay, well, you usually use 1 for 1 to summon Leaf Fish, but in this case, you could actually use 1 for 1, send the tuner to summon a heap or one of the other ones, and then you can just go straight into Garas after milling the Coelacanth, and you're good. So 1 for 1 works for both, actually. So 1 for 1 is absolutely mandatory if you're trying to do the combo. Piri Reis, this is essentially the one you would take out or put in if you want more or less consistency, because it basically just searches Beautiful for a cost. It's pretty useful even if you draw into Beautiful to just rip the Piri Reis. Sometimes they just negate the Piri Reis, and then you, 1, don't have to pay the life points, and 2, don't lock yourself into anything, and then it just eats up one of their interactions, and then you just normal Beautiful and kick their ass. And then, of course, 1 crossout is great in Ghoti because not only is it an anti-hand trap or anti-staple, it is also a way to banish your tuners for the next turn because it only negates until the end of the turn. Most people know that, but just wanted to say it again. Imperm, I threw it in just now with the crossout so that I could make the rank 4 extenders and the Ways into Leaf Fish equal again on my list. And I wanted to have it because Imperm is usually the most like punishing card in this deck faces when it comes to starting the combo or doing anything really when it comes to like just like turning off Leaf Fish or Jugaras. So once I put in Crossout, I threw in the Imperm so I can cross out the Imperm if I need to. And of course, O-Fish, you're always going to have fish monsters banished, or aqua monsters banished, or whatever the fuck. So this is going to be live essentially at all times, and it's just a counter trap effect monster negate. It's just really good. Synchro Zone, obviously, I've already touched on that. It's just amazing. It has actually revolutionized how I play this deck. It is amazing. Essentially, it allows you to go into Sigma on your opponent's turn if you want, with like an Ariane Post and Snopios. Reborning the Ariane Post is treated as a tuner. You have 2 level 6s, 1's a tuner, easy peasy. You don't have any other level 12s in here because obviously there's like no generic level 12s in the game. This is like the only one, or at least like in Master Duel. But I've already won like a bunch of games with Final Sigma. It's amazing. And then of course, just the Ghoti engine. You play 2 Ariane Post, 2 Azcan. I never need any more than that. The only Ghoti monster in the extra deck that I might want, like I would kind of like to have 2 of, is Deep Beyond, but it's very rare that they like unicorn a Deep Beyond or something, or like something like that. It's usually not a problem. You have a lot of other ways to do things. Your other boss monsters are just so amazing, like Chang'e and Barone and Aegarin. Aegarin is actually might just be the MVP. It's so good. Of course, White Aura Monoceros, you need that for the combo. White Aura Whale, good in Ghoti, just little Mirror Forest card. Archithus is an interesting tech I use, just because I play Fishborg. It's essentially a backup plan if you have Fishborg in hand and can't cycle him or something else, or it's just a decent backup plan if you have anything like that. If you're still able to summon it, because of course it's free, it summons itself for free, as long as you don't have some other weird thing in the grave like D-Shifter or Dugaras. Then you should be able to, or like Scarlight, but that never happens. So usually you're just able to summon it for free off of, and then just get like 2 level 4s on field, which obviously in this deck with this many rank 4 extenders is very easy. And then you get into a level 9 super quick, or just off one of your, like off of a Azcan or a White Aura Whale or something. It's quite easy to go into, and it's pretty good against like killing back row and stuff, which is comes in handy because killing back row with this deck is a bit tedious, even though you can do it with Azcan, because usually you're going to want to use the Azcan banish on a monster, depending on what deck the opponents are using, of course. But yes, Scarlight and the King Calamity are for the Calamity lock that you use with Synchrozone. The Scarlight is it can be any obviously any Dark Dragon Synchro level 8. In this case, it doesn't matter. But this is definitely the best one that I can find, at least in Master Duel, just because you can, if you're going second and you're doing the combo on your opponent's turn and you're going second, then you can just wipe the field and set up the Calamity Lock at the same time. And because you summon in the combo, importantly, you summon every boss monster, Barone, Shenging, and Igarin with Grethus, so they have more than 3,000 attack. Usually, if you're doing it on your first turn, it's usually 4,000, which is above the 3,000 that you would need your monsters to be above to not get blown up by your own Scarlight, which is a cool bonus. So Scarlight's probably the best choice. I used to use like Chaos Ruler or something, but obviously that's only in Master Duel, basically. And you could also use like Borreload Savage or whatever, but you're not playing any Lynx or whatever. It's just not worth it to try and like get something else out of it. This is the best one. Usually you're not going to use his effect, but his effect is available and it's pretty strong. So that's why I recommend Scarlight. And of course, King Calamity, you summon it with 1 Paces, 1 Shift, and Scarlight on the opponent's turn during their main phase with Synchrozone with its 3rd effect. So that is essentially all of the reasoning for the card by card here. Did I forget anything? No. Also, I guess I will touch on this. The Ash, I only play 1, mostly because of the whole cross-out thing, just so I could cross out the Ash, and also because I'm broke, and also because I don't really like drawing Ash, generally. Like, I usually like drawing Ash later in the duel. Like, if I'm playing against Labyrinth or something, it's not usually amazing to just Ash, like, the first Labyrinth effect they use. Usually I'd want to use it on like a Welcome Lab after I've already wiped their board with Deep Beyond or whatever else to completely kill them. Or not a Welcome Lab, but like whatever the normal summon might be or whatever. I just like having it later in the duel, so I'm okay with just playing 1, randomly drawing it or something of that sort. And I'm also cool with not drawing it because I have plenty of other things I'd like to draw. So that's the card by card. Now we can go into the combo here. So, welcome to the combo here. Essentially, once again, for the combo, you need 1 way into Leaf Fish and then 1 way into a rank 4 extender. Which in this case of this hand would be normal Leaf Fish, or and then after you normal Leaf Fish, or I mean, of course, you can do the extender or the Leaf Fish in whichever order you want to play around whatever you see fit. But at some point, you got a normal Leaf Fish and then mill Coelacanth, that's what Leaf Fish is for here. And then you can either use the field spell to banish like one of the other cards in your hand, which obviously ideally would be Shift here, or you could use White Stingray to discard the Shift and then like have like, I don't know, just have Leaf Fish in hand for the discard. You need to make sure you have 1 card in your hand by the time you summon Coelacanth the first time, so you can discard with it. And for this one, I'm just going to discard the shift because it's kind of nice to have more banish fodder in the grave later in the combo. It's not needed, obviously, because everything is self-contained. It all works perfectly, but it's nice to have, so you don't have to banish like a rank 4 extender from the grave, but that's not that important. If you play Ghoti Cosmos, though, or something like that, and you want more fish banished, which I know is not that many people, but like that's something you can think about if you want to maximize that. So essentially, we activate Dugares, choose the middle effect, summon Coelacanth. Make sure you put Dugares in the extra monster zone so you can have the full amount of zones possible. Activate Coelacanth, discard Leaf Fish, summon Fishborg. One of the tuners in this case would be better to summon Paces because you already have a Shift and Grave. One Greethus and one level 4. The level 4 essentially does not matter. However, if you got into Coelacanth with Paces from hand, if you hard drew Coelacanth and summoned him with Paces, you need to make sure that this level 4 needs to be Leaf Fish because you need the Leaf Fish and Grave for later in the combo. So that's why it's still okay if you summon him with Paces, because you can still just get the Leaf Fish into Grave through the Coelacanth summon, but you need to make sure to remember that. Anyways, first summon is going to be Barone. It pretty much has to be Barone every time. You're going to want it to be Barone every time so you can have an Omni to protect your combo from this point forward, but point is you want Barone first because you need to immediately activate the effect. Well, you don't need to immediately activate the effect. You just need to do it before you summon the White Aura Monoceros. You need to clear the zone for another card because you need more zones because you're running out of them, clearly. And of course, you saw the Greethus activated to boost the Barone. That's going to happen with every one of the boss monsters. So that's a little bonus. And of course, like I said, it is applicable for the, what's it called? Scarlet effect. But anyways, this is the step that is the first thing that might change depending on whether you're trying to go for the Calamity Lock or not. In this situation, where you don't have Synchro Zone in hand, or didn't have Synchro Zone in hand, you're going to most likely want to search Snopios with this Banish, so that you can then shuffle the Ariane Post with the Greethus back into your extra deck, because obviously, you only have 2. It's not super necessary to shuffle it back, but it's just nice to do, so you can still have 2 in your extra deck instead of just 1, and then have 1 precariously sitting in the grave. So instead of banishing the Ariane Post later with its own effect to search the Snopios because it needs to be at least a level 6, you just banish the Snopios with the Ariane Post. Trust me, of course, you can also search it with the Ariane Post later if you are scared you're not going to be able to get both tuners cycled. But that's not a problem here at this point. Because of course you can always just banish the Shift on its own, and of course you're going to be banishing an extra time with the Serpent with the Ariane Post effect. Even if you don't choose itself, you can choose another tuner, and then that will fulfill that. So don't worry about cycling the tuners; that will just happen. Just make sure you cycle the Paces instead of the Shift, because the Shift can cycle itself as long as it's in grave. And now here is the most important part of the combo that needs to be explained properly here. You use the White Aura, put it in the extra monster zone. It has to be an extra monster zone to maximize zones. And then target the Coelacanth with the Monoceros and then Ariane Post. Here is where in the Calamity combo you would search the Ariane Post or the Snopios by banishing the Ariane Post. But in this situation, you can just banish anything you want. Search whatever you want. You can, of course, even choose the Ariane Post if you have another level 6 to play. If you play Eonok for some reason or some other level 6 tech option. Here I usually just do Beautiful. That's just good follow-up for next turn, just regardless of what they do to your board. And then get Coelacanth out. Now here's the most important thing. Before you activate the Coelacanth for the second time, you need to Leaf Fish. because first of all, it gives you a draw for a cost of coelacanth. If the card's in your hand, you don't want to discard because you search this one for follow-up, and this one is Snopio, so you don't want to just get rid of your Snopio, so you want to be able to have that cycled. So you shuffle back the, so the draw is helpful. But more importantly, you shuffle back the Grethus. This is the most important. Shuffle back the Grethus and I guess the Arion Post if you haven't banished it with its own effect. And then I like leaving another Leafish in there if possible to use this effect for later. So I usually banish the Ring 4 Extender or shuffle back the Ring 4 Extender instead. I usually leave the Fishborg in there just to not have the chance of drawing it because you can technically draw one of the Grethus, which kind of ruins your combo slightly. But that has only ever happened to me once, and that wasn't even in a real game, so I wouldn't worry about that. Anyways, now you are free to activate Coelacanth, discard the card. I'm going to discard the one I drew off the Leafish effect, and then here you're gonna, this is why you play 2, you summon both of the Grethus, and you can choose any level 4 here, and this is why it's fine to leave the Schiff engraved, because you end on a fish here, which you can use to banish the Schiff with. And then you, of course, just use these to use the 2 level 3 tuners with the 2 level 7 non-tuners to make 2 more boss monsters. Chenging and Igarin are my choices here. Of course, you can swap them out for any other generic level 10 synchro or level 10 synchro that can fit into this deck. Technically, Igarin isn't generic; you still need a water tuner, but that of course fits perfectly with this deck. So Agarin, I think, is the best out of these 3 cards in general. It gives you protection and keeps all of this attack on board for next turn, which is amazing. And it gives you an extra banish as well, which sometimes is enough to just take out people's turns on their own, on its own. And then you just end phase. But most importantly, make sure when you summon the stuff at the end of this combo, the end board for this combo, you need to make sure it's all in attack position, because we use the Dugara's effect to what's it called? To summon the Coelacanth at the beginning of the combo, which locks you out of your main phase 1 for your turn 3, or for your second turn, or for the turn after that. And also sometimes if you're scared, you can activate the Agarin effect to do the protection in whatever it's called, in standby. If you're you can use the protection effect in standby if you're scared. You won't get to banish. You won't get to banish anything like a continuous spell, or like this would be a perfect opportunity to use Agarin because it's just putting down a field spell that doesn't have an activation effect. So you just banish it, and it's just gone. Essentially for free, because that's not even the main part of the effect that you're trying to get to. And essentially the way this board works is you first try and banish with Agarin. You try and wait until they normal something that doesn't have a normal summon effect or whatever that they have to activate after the chain resolves, or after you lose priority and whatever chain is active resolves. Meaning that this is usually the first one you want to use against like their normal summon, or them using a field spell or something like that. And then Barone, obviously, it's your Omni Negate if they like have some crazy shit that they slap down, and you need to get rid of it. Like if it's like a Regeki or something. Actually, Regeki doesn't do anything because you can just chain Hager into it and you're immune to destruction. But if they have something crazy that you need to like protect, then or to get rid of, then Barone's there as your Omni Negate. And then obviously Chengying. This is just massive board-breaking potential on their turn whenever you do anything with your Ghotis, whether it's summon the Snopios, summon the Arion Post, use the Arion Post effect, the Azcan effect, the Deep Beyond or whatever. Well, I guess the Deep Beyond wouldn't matter because this this would be banished with it, but because this actually doesn't protect your own cards from your own banishing effects. It's only by your opponent's partner's card effects. But that's fine. Essentially, and of course, besides the 3 boss monsters, you just have a shitload of Ghoti plays with these. You have a bunch of banished fodder, whatever you need. I've never lost with this board. It's just amazing. And it's off of essentially like just a way into leaf fish and rank fork sender. It's very simple. And of course, you don't need the field spell. That's just kind of a bonus. I just activated that because I had it. But the combo is entirely self-contained. You don't need extra discards for the Coelacanth combo because you draw an extra one with the Coelacanth, etc., etc. And then, of course, whenever they inevitably pass because they don't have any plays, then you just get to your next turn. Obviously, you would have not let that happen in a normal game, but end of main, you just once they pass turn, you have an absurd amount of attack on board for a crackback. It's insane. Usually, usually you want to activate Aegarin on your crackback turn, which would be this turn, in your standby because you're not necessarily trying to banish anything. Obviously, you don't have to, but it's nice to do it in standby so that they can't really respond to it, and you're protected for the battle phase. Because of course you can activate it in the battle phase, but I like doing it standby, just in case. And then of course this is just, I mean, like I'm just gonna negate that, I guess. You just attack right through everything. You have 3 monsters with 4,000 attack, and anything else that you can summon off of your Tunaful and the tuners that are left over, or the Ghoti monster you have left over, which is probably an Azcan, and you'll probably already also cycle the tuners with everything else. So everything just works out. It's just a very strong end board. All right. Here we are with now the King Calamity combo, as you've got Synchro Zone in your opening hand here. Doesn't happen all that often, but of course it's as it's only a 2 of in the deck, and it's not searchable, but that's fine because of course, like I said earlier, in the deck listed, basically just works with any of your stuff. Just like I've said a billion times, it's feels purpose built for Ghoti. I don't know why. It's crazy that I didn't know about this card before, but I guess that makes sense because I didn't play D-Shifter in Ghoti for the longest time. But regardless, this hand is full combo with King Calamity Lock because you have you don't necessarily have to draw the Coelacanth in hand for this combo, obviously. You can do it with the Dugara's line. But in this hand, I didn't draw into the Dugara's line, but I did hard draw into the Coelacanth. And of course, the way to do that is I have 2 ways into Full. I obviously drew one, and then I have Pyrrheus, which searches it by paying half your life points. But obviously, in a normal game, I probably would Pyrrheus first to see if they'd negate it. But, you know, anyways, in this situation when I know the AI is not going to interrupt me at all, I'm just going to get out the paces with the normal summon. And then, of course, banish the paces to get the Deep Sea King out. And then, usually here, I'd want to discard the Zep because you already drew it. Like, you're not going to... It's going to be tough to find a way to, you know, like, get it back in the deck or whatever. So you might as well have it... You'd rather have it in your grave than your hand, essentially. And then here, basically, the start of the combo is the same. Once again, if you didn't actually get into the Leaf Fish line and just summon the Coelacanth out straight up from hand with paces, you do need this level 4 to be Leaf Fish. Just something to remember. Now, of course, still here, even though you don't need to pop your own Dugaras here, it's still worth it to go Barone first. You don't necessarily need to put Barone in the extra monster zone because when you reborn the what's it called? The Coelacanth for the second time, you're gonna have the Monoceros there anyways, so you wouldn't actually be saving any space by putting Barone there, but I guess you could if you wanted to. Anyways, we've already got the Shift and the Paces essentially in rotation because of course the Shift can banish itself. But we're gonna be banished. We're gonna have plenty of things to banish. Anyways, I think here I'm actually just going to banish something normal here just to show. Like, banish the Ahip or whatever. Also, I say Ahip, it doesn't... I don't know how you actually pronounce that name. It's kind of crazy. But, yeah, put the Monoceros in here. So far, it's essentially the exact same combo. But here you're going to want to banish the Arion Post with its own effect. If you know you're already going with Synchro Zone in hand, if you know you're going for the King Calamity lock, because doing this doesn't burn the Snopios's like retrieve back to hand effect, because that's how I usually search it. At least I banish it with the Arion Post to search it from hand, or search it essentially from deck through the banish zone with its go back to your hand effect. Of course, use the Leafish here. You should essentially just do these. Of course, you could do the Fishborg. I would like to keep the Fishborg here, obviously, because of the whatever it's called. I drew Snoopy. That's interesting. Because I don't have Dugar's engraved, so I actually could have used the the Fishborg's effect to reborn itself like later on, but obviously that's not an issue right now or anything like that. Okay, so here's what you got to do. You got to make sure that you have enough things engraved to banish and stuff like that for the Snopios they're going to use in a second. Summon both the Greethus just like the other combo, but instead of a level 4 to do Ghoti plays next turn, grab one of the tuners. And since we already have both of these tuners in rotation, and I shuffled back the Zep, I can actually summon the Zep from the deck. Don't activate it; it's negated anyways. And then of course just do the classic. These are all still summoned with Greethus, so they get a bunch of attack, which will be very applicable in a second here. When I summon, after I cook through all of this stuff, after I use this to summon out, I banish the Shift, and I guess I'll banish the we're not going to need it, 2 Greethus from now on, so I guess I'll just do that. Could have banished the White Aura Monosaurus or something, but that can be used pretty effectively later on. Best thing to do is probably target itself here, and then go into Scarlight. And now, like I mentioned in the deck list, of course you can this is the biggest thing why you don't want to use the I'll just do this. Why you don't want to use the what the fuck is it called? You don't want to use the get back to hand effect to search it, because you're using it here to get it back to hand after using it as synchro material.
I'm about to whoop your ass, buddy.
You are mistaken, sir.
Oh.
This is the Neptibus Discord server, not Amal.
So you're talking to random right now?
I'm not talking to anybody. I'm recording right now. So, there you go.
Okay.
Anyways, this is the end board. You do still have Snopios in hand if you want to, once you summon the Calamity, if you want to, like, cycle them before the end of their turn, which is really great. You still have all 3 boss monsters, obviously. Of course, get out both of the tuners. Now, one thing I would recommend is, actually, I'm not sure if I should recommend it or not. I still haven't done enough testing to decide whether I should activate Synchro Zone, like, before or after, like, super early, like right now, or like wait until later, or like use it in standby or something, because you need to be able to be ready to chain off of any chain link 1 thing, because obviously you need the thing to be you need a chain link 1, this to be chain link 1 when you use this effect to, of course, obviously you would just let him pass here, but I will demonstrate with a synchro zone here. Send it to grave, don't chain anything, and then you just summon King Calamity here off of the Scarlight, put it wherever you want, and then you've won the game. Essentially. So that's how it works. It actually feels pretty fluid. You don't really have any Ghoti plays technically. You could technically you could go for if somehow King Calamity wasn't enough, which it always is, but if somehow it isn't enough, You can banish the snow, or you can use the Snopios effect. Well, obviously, if all of these three and King Calamity wasn't enough, you could Snopios and then banish the Zap to summon the Zap back on their opponent's turn, and then get into an 8, which can be White or Whale, because Zap always ends up being Chain Link 1. I think it always is Chain Link 1. It's always been Chain Link 1 for me, because it ends the chain before it activates its on-field effect when it's reborn from Banish Zone. So you can either, with this deck list at least, you can go into White or Whale or Azcan. Or even maybe Final Sigma, if you like want to use the. I think you can use the Zap for. No, it has to be a fish. So yeah, it would basically just be Azcan or White or Whale, but that's still nice. Get a banish or a little attack position mirror force there. As a little extra bonus on top of this absurd end board. And then obviously you have 4 monsters with over 4,000 attack ready to just, annihilate them. There's nothing they can do. I mean, this is, I guess, yeah, I'll just negate that. Then you could just kick their teeth in here with all of your massive boss monsters. It's actually impressive how easy it is for these guys to live with Aegorin on the field. It's very impressive. Wait, am I even gonna be able to get lethal here? Oh no, I can just activate the Changing's effect to banish that, and then easy. Or well, it won't be just. I can't be destroyed because of the Aegorin. Aegorin is absurd. It's so strong. But yes, that is the whole thing. It's very good.